Hello and welcome to the Bricecast, the Call of Duty Esports podcast. And this week we are covering obviously the biggest event in Call of Duty all year. It is going to be Call of Duty World Championship or the CDL Champs or whatever they're calling it now. It's all kinds of things. My name is Bryce. I'll be bringing you through all the action in the next hour, 90 minutes. But more importantly, I have assembled a crack team of experts to break down everything we need to know. Let's start with Silly. Silly, how are you?
Um, I'm great. It's a little bit early for me, but I made it. Happy to be here.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm glad to have you. Next up, we have from Toronto Methodz. Methodz, I know you've just woken up 15 minutes ago. Are you good?
I'm ready for action, soldier.
That I am happy to hear. And of course, MarkyB coming back once again. How are you, Marky?
I'm great, mate. I'm just looking forward to getting this done so I can go play some Smite.
Well, you didn't play very well last night, but we'll move on from that subject and get into the subject of today. All right, we do have to kind of touch on just a little bit what happened in the previous weekend. It was a new format, playoffs. I think it went quite well in my opinion. You know, it was a new format first time, getting all the teams there and going through. I just kind of want to know how you felt to go through what was obviously not the norm because of COVID, but also a brand new kind of format for your playing careers because you've experienced more than this. Let's start with you, Silly.
Um, obviously, the current format, I don't think it's ideal for most teams. Ended up being a pretty rough weekend for us, obviously. We just couldn't piece it together and ended up just kind of like beating ourselves and not closing in our hard points. So, I will be watching this weekend.
That's fair. That's fair. Methods, what's your take on it?
Oh, it's painful. It's
Fair enough.
I mean, in from a general standpoint, I think there were some really good games. Obviously, there were some issues that were luckily solved pretty quickly, but I think that's easy for me to say because I wasn't involved in those issues necessarily. So,
Yeah.
I feel for the teams that were, and obviously in a format like this, it's never going to be perfect. Like there's always going to be shit that goes wrong, and some shit went wrong, but I think as the weekend progressed, I think everything was really smooth. We were actually ahead of schedule, and I think we got to watch some good games. And I'm still depressed, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I've got that. Obviously, you know, it's this. We'll go on to you, Mark, in just a sec. But I want to point out something just before we do. Um, the reason I thought to kind of do it in this format is this is a very unique experience within Call of Duty. We've never had the World Championship where obviously pro players are already on the sidelines and had essentially a disappointing finish because a disappointing finish for any player is not to come first and win the World Championship. So I appreciate you guys coming on. I know, you know, reliving the old wounds that aren't even that old has to hurt a little bit. So I doubly kind of appreciate you kind of taking your time out of this week that most people are recovering and getting their heads back on straight. So I just wanted to quickly get that out of the way. But Marky, you know, what did you make of the playoffs run and everything that, you know, the format and the weekend and the week really?
I think I enjoyed it. I think there was a lot of great matches and whatnot. The one thing I did think that the format sort of, I guess, going to the more online-based situation. I think that if you look at teams like in the bottom four, like OGLA, for example, who obviously in the original format wouldn't even have got the opportunity, you know. So,
Yeah.
um, I guess it's interesting to see obviously how all the teams sort of panned out towards the end. And honestly, I didn't expect half the results to happen, so I enjoyed watching it. To be honest, from a spectator's point of view.
No, I think from a spectator's point of view, I didn't mind the 2 games a day thing. It was almost a bit of a shock. Like by the time I felt like I was getting in ready for that whole day of 12 hours of COD, it was almost like, oh, okay, we're done. We're on the second game. We've only got a couple of maps left. But I don't know how that feels from a competitor's point of view. From a spectator's point of view, I kind of enjoyed it. But maybe that's just because I'm in the UK and the times are different.
I didn't mind the 2 game a day format either. It gave you like a good amount of time to prepare for the team you were playing the next day.
Yeah.
Definitely gave you a lot of time for film and just to, ready the troops. But yeah, it's definitely different. I wouldn't mind it if it was like a LAN tournament like that, how you kind of just relax a little bit, went
Yeah.
over film, but it's definitely a bit different online for sure.
Do you think it adds to the strategic component, like the fact that after you win a game, you know, you got this chance to go away, look at the VOD, figure out your next opponent, because everybody knows, you know, who they're playing in the playoffs coming up, and then you've got to kind of figure out who you're playing next and stuff, and sit down with your coaches. Methods, what did you kind of think about the format?
Yeah, I mean, it gave a lot of time for this guy Mark and our analyst Ryan to do a lot of good work and a lot of homework. Similar to our championship run, I think they were the reasons we were very equipped and sort of prepared for what was to come.
Yeah.
Um, you know, 2 games. There's pros and cons to it. Like obviously, you want to play more Call of Duty. At the same time, it did give you more time to prepare, more time to relax. And it kind of made those wins like just feel a little better because it's like, wow, we won. We have a breather until tomorrow when we play again. Whereas like it used to be like we won, we're right back into it. So I mean, pros and cons. Like obviously, I think if we're on LAN, I'd much rather continuously keep playing matches. But I'm not sure how I'd feel about playing 4 games a day online.
Yeah.
I think it'd definitely be different. But yeah, it made preparing pretty important. And luckily, I think Mark and Ryan did a good job with that. So.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easy to go over to Marky now and say, did this kind of weigh into your strategy approaching the playoffs?
I think in general we sort of approached like especially the last couple of events, all the same really for each match. I think that's when, even if you look at the London series,
Yeah.
it wasn't one that we were able to have enough time to really prepare. The last one in particular, because obviously each day of the format, like you said, it was like you would have a day break in between. But on the last day, on the Sunday, London obviously played for top 6 in their first match, and then we played them after. So we had to sort of wait to see who one with that New York and London series. Obviously, we were sort of preparing for both teams and behind the scenes, but realistically, you really didn't know what to truly, drill in on until like an hour before we played. So it obviously wasn't ideal in that situation, but I think overall, obviously, it helps when you've got that extra amount of time to prepare and analyze your games from the day before, take that into account and whatnot. So I think it definitely helps from my job anyway.
No, that's fair. I think, like I said, a lot of people have taken some different things away from that, and I'm eager to see it kind of push forward. I do say maybe the one thing I would like to see is start playoffs earlier and just go straight on to champs, like this week break between champs. It feels like obviously we have to ramp up again. I don't know if that's the right word, but champs always has this long kind of hype slope in my mind, and the week break, while there still is the World Championship to go. If it was you start on a Monday, playoffs, and then Saturday, Sunday was the World Championship. Perfectly fine. A week of Call of Duty, especially with the 2-day format. That's kind of where I would like it to go. Let's move on to something to really kind of rev you up then and get the first kind of hot takes, because this is a question I am going to ask, and you probably best to exclude yourselves from this one. But what do you think was the most surprising result of playoffs? We'll go straight into you, Silly.
Most surprising result. Honestly, probably London making it into the top 4 for me. They made a really good run, and they actually regained after potentially getting hit offline in their first match. So that's really impressive to me. Definitely didn't have them in my top 4.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. Same thing for me. I think that if you look at London, I think after we played them in the first match, I'm not going to lie, I was sort of thinking that obviously with the circumstances and what went down in that series, I thought that it would have been a very hard task for them to come back from that mentally, and fair play to them. Like I genuinely didn't think they had it in their locker to be, even in a COD sense too. I just didn't think that they had shown enough as of late that they could do that. But obviously they came through it, and they sort of overcame that adversity, and obviously then put us to the sword pretty much in the series that we played against them. So fair play.
That makes sense. Methodz?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be London for me again. It's I mean, just to be completely honest, I didn't expect them to do very well this tournament, and I think they turned a lot of heads. I thought they just play Warzone, to be honest. I mean, but I mean, I think their Search and Destroy really helped them a lot. They were pretty consistent in that, and I think that's the most important game. But like, if you look at the tournament we won, we were winning our Search and Destroys, and I think in this tournament we went 1-4, and
1-4. Yep.
we didn't end up where we wanted. So
Horrendous.
yeah, we yeah. So I mean, there was a lot of tight moments, but yeah, I mean, fair play to London. I think they played incredible ever since that first match with us, and it's it's you look at personalities on that team, and you're like, when something like that goes wrong for them, it's just going to snowball and get worse. And they proved me and a lot of others wrong, and made it happen. So
yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think one of the surprising things about London, for me at the very least, was the names of the players who kind of shone that weekend. It was Shawnee and Zero. You know, these are two players who weren't on the original roster. One was brought in halfway from New York. So I was like, well, Shawnee, obviously, you know, he had those big highlight things in construction and kind of pushing forward saying, well, is this team now more of a threat? You know, if you've got Shawnee and Zero highlighting here, people really haven't been talking about them that much this season because you've got things like Scraps and the Waskins, the Twins, and obviously Dylan, who, you know, set the league alight last year. So I'm thinking, like, that is this a whole new aspect of London that is possibly like more dangerous because we haven't considered them having such a well-rounded roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to see them continue that consistency going into champs. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think I think Shawnee in particular was having some unreal games, and if he can replicate that, they're an insanely scary team because he's more so the player who maybe isn't the biggest slayer for them consistently,
Yeah.
but this weekend he kind of was. So I think if he replicates that, and obviously Trey was doing his thing, I think all weekend. I think if those two players are doing their thing again, I mean they're a hard team to beat because you know Dylan's always going to play well. Wuskin's you know pretty. He's an AR who knows what to do and when. And
Yeah.
then Scraps is also a slayer. So I mean, if you have those two who aren't necessarily the usual standout players going off, I think they're a tough team to beat.
No, I couldn't agree more. And let's move on then. Let's talk about our upcoming kind of predictions and breaking down these matches for everyone to see. And we've already spoken a little bit about London, so let's talk about their record because they're going up against Chicago. Now, Chicago obviously they almost, very almost, didn't make it into this one because they had come up against a revitalized Optic team in a fantastic round 11. So what do we think, you know, initially about this game then? London versus Chicago. You know, a lot of people are saying that, you know, Chicago, this is probably an easier game for them, but depending on how you look at London now, I don't know. You know, Silly, what do you think about this game coming in?
I definitely have a Chicago pick, just based off how they've looked. Definitely think they'll take the series. Could definitely be a close one based off how London's been playing, but I definitely think it's going to be a Chicago win.
Okay. Is there, what do you think that London are going to really struggle with then against them?
I honestly feel like Chicago just has too much slaying power. Like if all Chicago's, Slayers are on, there's just no way that London's going to be taking respawns from them.
No, I can kind of see that. I was actually trying to look at the stats from before the London tournament because the one of the things that, you know, is now slightly confusing and throwing in the mix here is, you know, London during the season and London during playoffs almost seemed like two different teams, right? A bit more consistency in London for this one. Methodz, what's your kind of first take on this Chicago London game then?
I have Chicago, and it's more so because how good they've been in search over their slang power.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at that team, to be honest, I would probably say I assume that their weakest game would be search, and I think they've been pretty clutch and pretty solid. I think they beat New York in two searches. They clutched up that optic series. So I really think search is going to be the do or die for a lot of teams in this last tournament. Um, when it comes to respawns, I think Chicago is more consistent. That being said, like once you reach the top four, I feel like any team can beat any other team. Like
Yeah.
these are the best teams at this current point, for the most part. And you know, I think it's gonna be close, but I think I have Chicago personally taking that one.
Yeah. Marky, do you agree with the other two?
I think it's the most interesting thing about this is obviously with the meta change or whatever's happening now. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
entirely sure how I'm not entirely sure how much that actually affects things because um, I've not watched in the last couple of days to see what everyone's running, but obviously um, a meta shift could sort of help one team or the other. In my eyes, if it's like more AR heavy, it could benefit Chicago more. But I really haven't watched, so I could just be
I'm
making up that it's more AR heavy.
I'm also worried about Chicago because fucking Formal's in Cali. That's like my one worry is like Formal playing from LA.
Don't think it's
Like, I
been
feel
too much of an issue so far, and it'll be on what, a Texas server.
Is it
More than
Yeah,
likely?
confirmed he's playing
probably.
from there, or is he going to move? Or
Yeah,
I
it's
think
confirmed he's playing from there.
I think it's gonna be Chicago server versus London because they're
Oh
all of
right, yeah,
Chicago
you're
is
right.
located in Texas. So I mean,
You're right.
I feel like Formal at a disadvantage. Now I'm not sure how uh how much it affects him personally, but from my standpoint, I'm, in my opinion, progressively worse on worse ping, and you know that's like my one worry is if Formal can put up formal numbers from Cali, like one of my.
Do you think that's going to affect Chicago in a massive way, having Formal, who has been somewhat pretty consistent for that team in terms of his ability to play and push the team around, especially with the meta change? Do you think that is the premium concern for Chicago? Is that maybe we have to adapt if we don't get Formal putting up massive numbers? How does that work against the matchups he's going to see, especially with things like Shawnee playing better, Zero obviously in his element now as he's found this team? Is it going to be that big of a deciding factor? Is it something that people really need to consider?
Personally, I just don't think that. I mean, that's what they've been playing on for the last couple of months, obviously, or for however long it's been online. So, it's obviously not been too much of a hindrance for them. In terms of their matchup against London in the past, I don't see it being too much of an issue. But I actually don't even really give my opinion on the matchup. Really, I do think that London have an opportunity there. I think that in general, if you look at London, they've always been able to hang in the in the hard points in particular.
Yeah.
And their domination has obviously been a struggle. They pick up a domination win against us. Their S&D's been looking better, so it's like one of those ones that realistically you could see London taking the series, but like I said, it really depends how this meta changes or how that sort of update affects things.
I think that's fair. So you seem like you have something to jump in with.
I guess it really kind of depends too on what kind of servers they play on. Based
Yeah.
on location, I could also see like a potential ATL or Virginia server. I'm pretty sure from Texas to North Carolina. So if you're going from West Coast like all the way east, you could definitely affect them in a bad way. But I guess it kind of just depends on how the server vetoes go down.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's now a factor, right? The server vetoes and stuff. And I suppose a question I haven't asked is, there was a lot of talk earlier in the season about server locations and was there enough servers and stuff. Did that situation change at all? It's something I haven't really asked before. Were there more servers added for playoffs and champs?
Yeah, there was more servers added. Granted, there's still kind of a way to get screwed depending on where your team is located. There was a couple more added, but it didn't help that most of the year we had issues with a lot of the servers in certain locations where we'd get red boxes or we get the timer or have ping issues. So kind of always an issue.
Yeah, no, I can understand that completely. So I'm looking at the stats from, I believe this is the last time London Chicago kind of matched up, and it looks like the matches played were Gunrunner and Hackney Yard Hardpoint, Dom St Petro and S&D Piccadilly, and that went 3-1 to Chicago. They only lost the Gunrunner Hardpoint by the look of it. Do you think we're going to see a similar kind of matchup with these two teams? Do you think similar maps? Do you think how do you think it's going to break down?
I hope Chicago vetoes St. Petro Hearts Dom next time. I mean, I'm not sure how strong Chicago is on it, but from our research, I believe we thought London's strongest Dom was Petro. I mean, overall, I think they were 9-20 in Dom before they played us, and now they're 10-20. So that's an upsetting one to lose. I mean, we lost we lost our best Dom map to them. That was sort of like the nail in the coffin, I would say, for us. But
yeah, I mean, that was a surprise. I don't think anybody predicted them to win the Dom.
I think both teams are extremely confident, so I think both teams will be fine, like playing maps that they think the other team is good on. For example, like I expect to see a Gunrunner. I'm not sure about a Hackney. With the stakes this high, one team starting off with a significant disadvantage. I'm not sure if we'll see that, but I could definitely see a runner hardpoint. Petro Dom, I mean, I do know Chicago's good at it, but I mean, I feel like that's an easy veto.
Is that more Chicago saying, look, London clearly haven't had a good time on Dom as of the season, and now that they've won a St Petro Dom, is it just an easy one to kind of sidestep and go, look, that's the only Dom they've won in God knows how long. It's going to be way too easy for us to just move aside and go on to a different one. Because obviously they beat them last time. They played them on St Petro Dom last time in the series they played during the regular season and beat them on it. Is it going to be Chicago being confident on that map, or do you think it's just an easy one for them to go, maybe we should just sidestep it for now?
I feel like in any Dom, honestly, they'll be pretty confident going into the series. I feel like they can pretty much pick any of the three and be confident in winning it. So I don't think their Dom veto is going to play like a super huge factor.
Yeah, agreed.
I can see that. So let's talk about the hard points then. Gun Runner Hardpoint was the map that London won last time, according to my statistics. Do you think that's going to stay in? Do you think both teams are confident on it? I know for me it's a favourite map and I choose to play it, but that's obviously not something that really goes into these strategic discussions. So what do we think? If we see that come up first, and we see Gun Runner Hardpoint map 1, what do we think about these two teams on it?
Honestly, I could see it happening. If you look at London's matchups, they obviously play that like a fair amount. I think in general, I would probably expect it to go towards Chicago. Like I said, I think that in general, I think that from what we've seen on London on the map, for at least from what I believe, I think that Chicago are a little bit stronger. So if we were to see that again, I would guess Chicago would be one that would come out on top.
Actually, I said last time, it was London's map to take. Do you think that kind of factors in now whether or not, how confident they're feeling? Because playoffs must have been a big boost for London in terms of, continually pushing through and, being realistic with the expectations. Obviously, everybody comes into playoffs to win it. But the honest truth is, roughly what your strengths and weaknesses are with all the analysts everyone has, all the coaching you guys have done, all the playing, what maps you need to play. It does kind of get in a mental factor going, oh, well, we win this game roughly 1 out of 5, and our scrims have been splitting maps and all this going on. How do you think that affects London coming into a game mode that not only have they lost to Chicago before, but they're also now more confident? It's a very weird kind of formula for me.
I see Runner Hardpoint being played. I mean, I think if you're Chicago, like the last 2 times they played it were against us and they lost it. But that being said, they were extremely close games. I just think they're 2 confident teams. Like I think London will probably still think it's their best map, and Chicago will want to play them on that. And I think we're just going to see an all-out war on Runner. To be honest.
Okay, what do we think about the other hardpoint map then? Now, last time they played Hackney Yard, but Methodz, you already said you don't think they're going to see it. You don't think they'll see Hackney Yard in this one?
You have to be extremely confident in your ability to flip. Now that my team's unfortunately out, wow, that's painful. I think every time first of all, Hackney was probably our strongest map year round. Like that was probably our best map year long, and we were super confident playing Allegiance on it. So it's sort of just like a mind game where it's like sometimes you have to go for the flip, and sometimes you have to just straight up hit it because they're either going to stack and watch the flip, or they're going to stack the point. And it's sort of just like pick your poison. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get the flip. Sometimes they run into 5 pre-aims and get 5 wiped. So I mean, it really depends on how confident they are on the bad side. I mean, me personally, I always preferred Petro bad side because I think it's a lot easier to flip.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
What do you think, Sonny? Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. I honestly don't even know how the bans would go down for those hard points, so I could definitely see a bad side Hackney pick again. I feel like both teams are pretty solid at it, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely see that in there.
I can see Ramaz
Sure.
play.
Yeah, I mean, bad
Yeah,
side
that's possible as well.
Bad side Hackney is not as bad as what it's all made out to be honest with you. I think
But it can be.
it can be in probably 20% of the games, to be honest with you, or even less than that. Most of the time, you're
Is that
going
something
in
you risk
even
during
going.
champs, though? Do you risk that during champs?
Mark saying
mean,
this when we lost 250 to 30 to Paris one time because we lost 120 at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, that happened. That's when we were horrible.
Yeah, that's true.
We also won 250 to 50 on the bad side, mate.
Listen,
Unlucky.
We were a good bad side team.
To be fair, like I mean, I remember, for example, when we were playing Minnesota online, we used to play them like I feel like we used to play them like every couple of days, and every single day for months we were just hitting the hill P1 over and over again. Then we square up in the match. We're like, these have seen us hit the hill about 100 times. We're just gonna go for the flip. Fuck it. And it worked, I think, from what I remember.
It's an interesting one that also I want to bring up here because this is the very final kind of hurrah, right? This is everything these teams have been doing all year, every game they've played, every scrim. Is this one where maybe some different things come out? Like you said, Mark, you just kind of highlighted it brilliantly there. Played Minnesota a load, you've kept doing the same thing, and then you went, right, let's just change what we're doing and see if it works. Is that going to happen now? Is it a good enough calculated risk to take a risk when the stakes are so high?
I think so. I think you definitely got to take some risks. I think if you look at Search and Destroy in particular this weekend, there's going to be obviously a lot of analysis going down on every team amongst each other. So I think that in terms of new strategies and whatnot that you might want to pull out that you might not have got the reps on that you might have wanted,
Yeah.
or something like that. Sometimes you're going to need to risk those sort of things. Obviously, ideally, you've got everything prepared and you're ready, but I think that there definitely is times for educated and sort of planned risk.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely what I'd expect to see. But yeah,
That's fair. I mean, you talk about the S&Ds, and we can talk about the S&Ds now. What do we think S&D wise between these two teams? Because I feel like Chicago have been doing pretty well on them. But I mean, London seemed to have this like mid-season dip on their S&D. For there was a start where they're like, oh, we're doing really, really well, and it was, we had that event with Waskins who was just playing around with the sniper consistently. They seem to have put that a little bit to the wayside now because I think teams very quickly adapted to it. So what do we think in this direct matchup between these two?
Honestly, S&D between the two, once again going back to Chicago's vetoes, I feel like they can pretty much play whatever they want. So
Yeah.
I feel like regardless of what game mode it is, they're going to win the veto process, or at least they'll feel like they win the veto process. I'm pretty sure they've played every map at least a few times, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I think they're pretty much good on all ends.
Yeah, last time they played it was Piccadilly, by the way. Do we think
yeah.
both teams are going to go cracking into that again? Because I don't know if London have had a great Piccadilly record recently.
I
They
don't.
used to have their map, and then it's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know if London will square up in Piccadilly. Chicago sort of were completely exploiting London's A defense at that in that particular match because I remember it well. We were copying exactly what Chicago were doing the next time we played the map. I think that in general, that Chicago probably are going to be looking at playing that map ideally for them, but I think that London are probably going to look to avoid it. I mean, you may see them square up on it, but I'd expect a completely different look from both London and Chicago on the map.
Yeah, I can see that. And I'm looking at some of the statistics right now. Unfortunately, I don't have the playoff statistics with me, so I'm using the statistics from the 4 kind of events beforehand. Chicago's S&D wasn't the most amazing, I don't think. Let me just check this, that I've got this right. 67% win ratio. Their best maps look like Gunrunner, St. Petro. They went 50% on Piccadilly and 33% on Ramaza. Hackney Yard and Zir Cave obviously not involved. So yeah, those 4 maps have kind of played over the last 4 times. And they seem to have a pretty decent ratio. It's actually their best game mode in the 4 previous events coming up to playoffs. Do you think that makes a kind of a big factor for them in confidence? And obviously, against OGLA, they went right to the wire, unbelievable finish. Do you think they're just going to be coming into this with a lot of confidence? Do you think they've had to brush up an awful lot on the S&D or change anything?
I think it's kind of important to, revamp your S&D a little bit, especially if you have this like extra week to prepare. If you do end up playing the same maps you played last week, you don't want to run your same exact strats, or you're going to get hard countered.
Yeah.
Especially because I think Arklov Peak is a map we're probably going to see in this series, and they just played that against Optic, so they'll probably like touch up their strats or come up with some new stuff in the course of this week and really just try to innovate their map pool.
Oh, I think your mic has gone. Okay.
Lucky then. I'll continue on Arklov Peak. To be fair to Arklov as well, I think that's one of those maps that you really can sort of strategize against how a team plays certain things. So it's going to definitely be interesting to see how both teams come correct towards that and see how they sort of balance not only trying out new strategies and trying to be different to what they've used to success previously, but also sticking to their guns.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's one of these ones where it's going to be a lot of countering, right? You roughly know what vetoes you're going to go into this match. You're going to be very worried about, how much VOD have we seen on this game before? What can we watch of theirs? What are they going to watch of ours? Because they're going to have a week to prepare, and especially that with the first match being so expensive. I was going to say expensive, but the amount of money just starts ramping up exponentially now. It's kind of crazy. How's your mic doing, Methodz? Is it back? No, it is not. If you go into the little symbol with the microphone and just double check you've got the right one, it may have changed. I don't know why it would do. But hopefully
Right
that...
now,
There you
I
go.
put it
There
on
you
my.
go.
Is it bad in the webcam? Can you hear me
It's
fine,
on
or
the
is it
it's on
bad?
the webcam. It's okay. It's not amazing. A
Someone
lot of
try
background
switching
noise.
back. Hold on.
There we go. We can hear you. You're a little bit quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, so touching real quick on the former question.
Oops.
Honestly, I didn't hear what you guys were saying right there
Very
because I was
quiet.
focused on. Very quiet.
There you go. There you go. You're
There you
much
go.
better. Much better.
Okay, you can hear me well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think London's have to pick their poison. I mean, I think they have to play Piccadilly or Petro versus Chicago, and I would probably say Petro was probably their strongest search year long.
Mhm.
And I think Runner will also be played. And I mean, I'll rub Marky's head here a bit again. I think my team was very well prepared for London's style of play. We just happened to lose 2 1v2s in a 5v3, which is great. So
With bomb down, we had bomb down as well.
yeah, we
You
bombed
forgot
down
that as
at
well.
the easiest site to defend the game. So
Yeah.
that's great. But I think Chicago have the searches for the most part. Like I said, I mean, if you play them on Petro, I don't see London winning. If you play them on Piccadilly, I don't see them winning. And Runner is sort of like that toss up for me, where I can see it going either way.
Okay, so I think the veto process is obviously going to be very important for these two teams, and
Yeah.
locking this down. And the last one we want to talk about a little bit here is Dom. Obviously, we kind of touched on it before, and the problem with the domination thing is, like you said, London have a terrible record on it, like a really bad record, but they technically won their last one. Do you think that London are, because it's a difficult way to put this, right? And I'm trying to figure the right words, because London are not good at Dom except the last one, and it's a terrible way to put things. But do you see them winning against Chicago on domination? Like, is that a feasible thing to happen here?
I don't think so. No way.
No, I don't think
Jinx?
so.
I mean, hey, maybe us three saying no will give them some strength in this match, but I mean, I think statistically they're just, I don't think one win is enough to completely revamp domination gameplay. I mean, hey, they have a week to work on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's limited scrims though, and especially with the meta change. I mean, to be honest, we're kind of all, us three especially, are kind of all clueless to how the game's being played right now, because I'm sure none of us have touched the game since we lost. So I'm curious to see if that will change anything. If maybe it's more AR heavy, they can play a little slower. I mean, I really don't know, but I don't see Chicago losing a dom to them.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, let's quickly talk about the key players. Who are the key players in this matchup? Who is going to town? Who is the savior? Who is somebody that the fans are going to be screaming about come the end of this match? And why really? I mean, let's talk about London. Who's their big gun in this one?
I wouldn't even say their big gun, but their X factor is obviously Shawnee. If Shawnee can play like he did through the playoffs in the actual like champs weekend, I feel like that's their best chance of beating Chicago. Definitely need like an impressive series out of him.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I think if Sean plays the way he did in our match in particular, I think that they're obviously in for a great opportunity of winning. I think if you look at how Sean plays, he's a very selfless player. Even when he was dropping like nearly triple positive in our fourth map, he was getting near enough 2 minutes on the hill. So like obviously if he's picking up those kills well, doing the dirty work of the objective, they're obviously going to win pretty convincingly. That's just the way it kind of works. But in general, I probably am expecting Sean to be that guy this series. I don't think that it's fair to expect that too often of him. I think he's kind of due a good series every now and then, but I think more so than not, he's just going to be that consistent guy that does the things that are needed to be done to try and get a win. For me, I think that Dylan for champs, I think if they actually want to go ahead and put a potential case to win the whole thing,
Yeah.
I think he needs to be that guy that he can be. That sort of best player in the world at times last year. Like he would literally like turn into an absolute Terminator for the last like 2 minutes of a game and just completely drag his team to a win. I think that if you get that out of Dylan, as well as sort of what Trey has done, and you kind of know what to expect out of Matt, and you kind of know what you get out of Brad. I think that they have a chance of doing well and getting some dubs on the board. But in general, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for them. But like I said, I think that if they want to do that, I think Dylan's going to be that guy.
Yeah, that's fair. Methodz, what do you think? Shawnee and Dylan, or have you got a different opinion?
Looking at Pristini.
For London?
Oh, we're talking about specifically London. So
London to begin with. We'll go London to begin
I
with.
thought you were talking about the matchup. Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, I pretty much agree with the Shawnee thing. I mean, he's a solid player. I'm not sure if he's that standout slayer consistently, like we just saw.
Yeah.
Dylan as well. I mean, he has the potential to be great. And something I've noticed in him is I don't think he's been as prevalent in matches. You know,
Uh-huh.
I think I think his play style can be punished a lot more in matches when teams are playing a lot more structured, a lot more disciplined. Whereas when I scrim the guy, I think he's a Harlem Globetrotter. I'm like, all right, I can't kill this guy. But then it's noticeably different in matches. I just feel like the amount of intensity brought into matches and the actual structure brought in is a lot more discipline, and I think he struggles against that. So that being said, I'm not sitting here saying he's not doing well in matches, but I do think he's more impactful elsewhere. But if he's as impactful as he can be, because I mean, dude, he's an annoying player with that smoker day. He just runs through it, knifes you. Like he is annoying to play against. I think he's the X factor easily.
Oh, awesome. All right, fair enough. We'll see whether or not that plays out. Let's talk about Chicago then. Who is going berserk for Chicago this time around? Obviously, we've just seen some great performances at playoffs, but we'll start with you, Methodz, because you already mentioned one. Pristini, why?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When he had that .52 series, I thought they were done for. I thought, knowing his how passionate he is and how emotional he can be about his gameplay,
Yeah.
I thought there was no way he'd make it back. And in the very next series, he came back with a chip on his shoulder and played extremely well. And like sort of like Dylan, when that guy's playing well, they're an extremely hard team to beat because that guy's running in the door first and getting a two-piece. So it depends which Pristina you get. If you get the little inconsistent one, that's an opportunity for London. If you get consistent Pristini who's running in first and piecing you up, I think you're in trouble. I think Dylan, Envoy, and our cities are sort of, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get either consistency or big maps. I think Seth also popped off at times this weekend. And, I just think Chicago has a lot of firepower, and it sort of all comes together with the player Pristini. So I think if he does his thing, it's going to be Chicago convincingly, actually.
Yeah, that's fair. Silly, what do you think? Who are you looking forward to seeing on Chicago this time round?
I agree with the Prestini pick. I feel like if he goes off, he's like their entry player. If he goes 1-for-1 every life and he's gunning people, I feel like there's just simply no way they lose a respawn whatsoever. He's their X factor.
Fair, that's fair. Marky, any differing opinions here?
Yeah, I think that Pristini's kind of the easy answer. I think that
Okay.
if you just look at him historically, I think that it's one of those ones. If he goes off, he's a very impactful player. So I think that easy answer, Pristini.
Easy answer. I mean, you're all wrong. Clearly, you guys don't know how to play Twitter correctly, and I'm just gonna pick Scump and win, because that way, that way, everybody will just agree with me. It's easy. It's an easy pick that time around. All right, let's put money where our mouths are then. Predictions for this match, and I know we kind of covered it at the beginning. You all think Chicago, but we have now covered it in depth. Anybody picking anything different? Anybody confident enough to put a scoreline down?
Wait, yeah, I'm changing up my prediction. I'm going London. I'm going London 3-2.
Oh, it's an interesting one.
I'm going London 3-2 simply for the reason that I believe that London really have put a lot of work into their search and destroy. I believe if they carry that over onto this weekend, they can take search and destroys off Chicago. And then I think that the respawns are, domination is going to be. I think the game is more than likely going to be decided on domination. To be honest, if I'm being realistic, so maybe I'm being kind of optimistic saying London, but
yeah, Mark just wants to sound edgy. It's going to be Chicago 3-0.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be
or 3-1.
I'm just trying to go against the grain,
Chicago.
I think
as well.
I mean, I think map 2 is the swing map. Like whoever wins the first map, if you take that second map and go up 2-0, I see that team winning, and I see Chicago doing it this time. Now I'm not saying London's incapable of winning. I just see Chicago winning. Obviously, it's going to be a lot closer than I'm probably making it out to be, I think, but I don't see a way I can pick London.
No, I kind of agree with you here. Like, as much as I want to pick London, and they have shown that they will do it. I mean, Chicago are probably on, at the moment on a different level just by being the fact they're at champs, right? So I think realistically, I can see where Mark is coming from, and if Mark's to come true, I could see it probably being like they take a hard point and 2 searches. But that's, for me, that's an outlier. It's not something that with my head, I would pick. With my heart, I would pick it. But with my head, I would have to agree with you, Chicago. So we'll move Chicago forward into our little bracket and go on to the other big game, the kind of the winners side of it, and that is obviously going to be Atlanta FaZe versus Dallas. Let's kind of jump into this game then, because these are two Titan teams that people are looking forward to going head to head in this one. Silly, what are your kind of first initial thoughts on it?
Um, that's probably the hardest series to gauge, in my opinion. I feel like there's no like definite whatsoever. Even from like a fan's perspective, I don't think anybody's too sure on how it's going to go down. I realistically probably wouldn't even have a prediction for it.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a hard prediction to make. Realistically, when you'd get to these points and even the home series tournaments, you would have seen both of these teams in a couple games. Both of these teams over the last month, because of obviously the break in between the last home series and champs, we've only seen one series from them. So I think it really is hard to predict. Obviously, we did go up against Dallas, and I think Dallas looked extremely strong, obviously in the hard points in particular.
They had a
So
nice server.
they did have a nice server, but regardless, I think that Dallas, like I said, have looked really strong on those hard points, and historically, I think it's obviously been a very tight matchup. I'm gonna go. I'd probably go more towards. I guess we're not doing predictions right now, but
No, we've
I,
got lots to talk about.
yeah, keep going.
I think you flip a coin and put FaZe on heads and Dallas on tails. I mean, there's no way to accurately pick this one. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the talent's pretty even on both teams.
Yeah.
I think obviously Dallas has a little more experience with Clay and Krim. That being said, I really don't think that plays too much of a role here in a match like this. I mean, you look at FaZe, they have some world champions there, despite how young they are. I mean, if you win a world championship, you have experience. So it's sort of like the two kids versus their father, you know, Abizi and Simp versus Clay. So I'm excited to see that one, and I truly don't know what to expect.
All right, well, let's kind of go into it bit by bit and see if we can't kind of gather a little bit of where we think it's going to go from some of the statistics and the kind of matches. So, based on what I can see from my statistics, they've played twice in the last 4 events that they've kind of matched up, and it looks like it's heavily on FaZe's side. By the look of it, they've had Gunrunner, they've played twice and they've split it. It looks like FaZe won Azir Cave, Dallas won an S&D Piccadilly, but lost Gunrunner. Last one is Dom, and it's Gunrunner, I think, both times, and they've lost it both times, Dallas. So at the moment, the statistics at the very least say it is looking like Atlanta FaZe, but obviously statistics don't tell everything, and it is from quite a wide kind of period of time. Let's talk about the hard points then. What's going to happen in the hard points between these two? I know with the meta change, it can be a little bit different coming into it here. Obviously, this is what I like to call the second major meta change because we don't know what this one's playing like. But the one before definitely pushed it towards a more M4 meta. Do you think that helped Dallas against the FaZe matchup or not?
That's a tough question too. Honestly, I don't know because I feel like everybody, like most of FaZe is just so like they can just switch around guns and use whatever whenever they adapt to everything. So I don't know if it really like benefits either team that much. But yeah, I mean, definitely a good matchup in terms of like roles.
I think that, I mean, I guess the only reason you could really give would be that in theory, if there's more ARs, it slows down the game, and then in which you'd favour a more sort of methodically solid team. And I'd say that if you look at teams if you look at Dallas and Atlanta, I think that Dallas have a better understanding of how to play the game. Personally, I think that Atlanta rely a little more on their individual talent, but they're obviously really good, which obviously sometimes goes in their favour completely. So I think that in general, it's hard to say how it's going to affect. Because like we said, we've not really seen. We don't really know. We literally are just making stuff up at this point. So yeah,
I'm trying to call it educated guessing, but okay.
I think the AR thing is extremely gas. Like I don't think it really changed that much. I think most of the ARs that the players use, like that really fast AR, I'd argue that the only AR that really slowed the game down was the Forge Attack one that you see like a player like Accuracy use or like that I would use on Cave.
Yeah.
I really don't think you're going to see slower gameplay, or have seen that much slower gameplay. I mean, sure, here and there, depending on matchups, but I think you have two extremely quick teams that are both extremely confident, that are about to literally have a bloodbath right in front of your eyes. Like,
Way to put
that's,
it.
yeah, I mean, that's really, like, that's really, like, the only way to put it, I see.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the individual maps then, because it looks like we are going to see a gun runner between these two teams. They've already played it twice in the last 4, and they've split it. It makes sense for that to get through the vetoes to be in the match, whether or not it's map 1 or map 4. How do you see a gun runner with the current form of these two teams going, in the match?
Um, playing them both recently, and this is obviously just like based off of scrims, but I feel like I give the gun runner hardpoint competitive edge to Dallas. I
Okay.
feel like that's the hardest map for at least my team to play against them when we would scrim them. Probably by far.
Yeah, I think that our team as well, like if you look at our matchup, we struggled massively against Dallas on Gunrunner. So, and it's a map that we had success in, beating FaZe in it in the past. And historically, I think that we've actually matched up against FaZe pretty well on that map. So, I'd have to give the edge if that map was to come up. I'd have to give the edge to Dallas.
Depends if FaZe come out gunning, because I mean, FaZe is more like a break-heavy team, whereas Dallas will play the map more disciplined. But if FaZe can win like initial fights and sort of take over hills early, I mean, like I said, it's pretty tough to call. I will also give the edge to Dallas just because I think they're a little more disciplined, a little more structured on that map, and I think there's a lot of money hills. I mean, you look at P2, P3, P5. I mean,
Yeah.
they're pretty much all full 60s if you have a proper setup. I don't think FaZe can easily break a team like that, easily like they could versus other teams per se. So I mean, yeah, I'll give Runner hard point to Dallas. That being said, FaZe can also easily win that, but
Yeah, I think it's
consistently speaking, I think I would pick Dallas.
Yeah, I can see that being a very close map. I think, especially with these two teams knowing what's coming down to it, is it going to be a case of, Identify saying, hey, look, if we, make sure we don't let them get these setups on these money hills early, we know we have a good chance to break it, but we also know they're very good at holding. The old immovable object versus the unstoppable force, it sounds like. Do you think that kind of goes into their preparation saying, hey, if we do just, rotations just a little bit better, if we just get a few more rotations off them, we know we're better at breaking than they are. There's a good chance we take this away from them.
For sure. I mean, I think FaZe should definitely be focused on rotating a little early. I mean, it's not easy to break hills. They've been doing it all year somehow, but the game is a lot easier when you're set up. So I'm sure RJ and Chris have them in the camp, and I mean, I think you're gonna see the best version of each of these teams come this weekend. I think the preparation that goes into a weekend like this is it's a lot. And yeah, I mean, I think FaZe will be better equipped. That being said, I mean, Dallas has the reps consistently wise.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. Okay, what other hardpoint map do you think we're going to see? Like, where else are they going?
Could it be an
Um,
Azure maybe?
They played
I
this
mean,
here
yeah,
last time.
It could be Cave.
Because Ramaza's weird. I think they're both really strong at Ramaza, but I think one of those teams isn't going to want to play the other on Ramaza. I'm not
Yeah.
sure who it will be, but I see Ramaza gone. I mean, you can maybe see a Cave. I would give a Cave pick to FaZe for sure if they do play Cave. I think FaZe is a little stronger on Cave. I think they do have a lot of reps on Cave. I'm more so speaking though, like earlier in the year, I remember how good they were on it.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Yeah.
I'm really not sure how good they are recently, but I do know, like, for example, Illy is their third AR on Cave, and Illy is a sub player by nature. So I think you put an AR in his hands, it sort of switches up his style of play a little bit, and I just see FaZe being a little more well rounded on Cave.
Okay, yeah, I kind of see that. Like I said, it's an easy one. They kind of played it last time. Obviously, from what I can tell, FaZe managed to walk away with it that time. Do you think that's is where they kind of split the hard points then? Because we've already said, Dallas we think may have an edge on Gunrunner. Azir is probably going to be the FaZe pick. Is that something that now, because we're thinking, they're going that way, that FaZe should take that hard point?
I would give them the edge on Cave for sure. Yeah, if it does come down to Cave. I just feel like the rest of the maps in the pool, like, I don't think you're going to see Ramaza. Don't think you're going to see Hackney Yard. And then the only other option is what, like a bad side Petro pick.
Yeah.
So I mean, Cave or bad side Petro, I'd probably have to say Cave, and I definitely give the edge to FaZe.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Let's talk about S&D then, because that's always an interesting one. And it always feels like, to me, one of the more consistent game modes to judge a team from, because obviously everybody puts an awful lot of effort into search and destroy and how it kind of tactically evolves over time. How do we think this is going to go? By the look of the S&Ds last time around, Dallas took the Piccadilly, and FaZe took the Gunrunner. Are we looking for those same maps in this S&D?
Yeah, once again, I mean, those are maps you could definitely see in. I could definitely see the exact same two maps. I feel like they could go either way, though. I feel like they're both really strong Gunrunner S&D teams, and I feel like the Piccadilly is solely dependent on the snipers, just whichever sniper's turning up. So, you definitely see that again.
I disagree with the sniper part of Pick. I think Dallas is extremely tough to play on Piccadilly. Like they play so confident, so pushed up, where like you consider that map to be a little more AR heavy due to the lines of sight and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, for our series, for example, I mean, we could not move on the map really. That being said, I think we played with a little lack of confidence in that map versus them, but I think they have a really clear game plan on it. To agree to Silly's point, if one of the snipers is going off, I see that team winning, but I just don't think these teams will give picks easily. Like I don't think you'll see a lot of free picks for snipers really at champs at all. I mean here and there sure, but I would give Dallas Piccadilly personally.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think Dallas Piccadilly. Marky, anything to contribute to that kind of pick?
Yeah, I think that I'd favour Dallas and Piccadilly, and I think overall in S&D in general, I think I would favour Dallas slightly. I just in general kind of believe that Dallas are sort of more well prepared for the search and destroys, and at least it feels like that from what I've seen. They're constantly adapting, constantly changing what they're doing, and I'm sure that's off the back of people like Clay who are constantly trying to innovate and constantly try to change things up, as well as like obviously guys like Illy and stuff. I think that Dallas, for me, play with complete confidence and search and destroy at all times. And like I said, I think that paired with the factor of they're constantly just changing and evolving and coming up with new strategies, I think that they're a hard team to prepare for, and they're a very well prepared team. They kind of know exactly what they want to do going into a map, and they like to stick to their game plan and execute on that. And I think that that's what you've seen in, particularly in that game 5 search and destroy against us on Piccadilly. It looked like a very confident map for them. So I think if you see it on that, it's going to be favored towards Dallas in my eyes.
Okay, again, we seem to be leaning towards Dallas. What about the other map then? Like if say we get to a map 5 and whatever pick that will be, what do we see kind of being picked here? We thinking Gunrunner again?
I can see the Gunrunner again for sure.
I think they're both confident on it.
Yeah, both teams confident on it. Could see it getting squared up on again.
It's
But
definitely
like it's so hard to like FaZe has firepower. Like I'm not saying Dallas doesn't, but a player like Siam can come out and drop 18 kills. Like you truly just don't know who's gonna go off. I would say like if you look at stats, I would have to assume Dallas has more wins on runner. I think that's statistically their best search map. I
Yeah.
could be talking absolute nonsense, but like I'm pretty sure that's what my team was discussing.
Yeah, you're spot on.
But we also FaZe they just have a lot of individual good S&D players. Like Simp came from Search and Destroy, Celium, Priesta. Like they have a lot of pieces who can take over at any point. And like I said, like there are a lot of odds to watch on Dallas. Like you can really sort of game plan against them.
Yeah.
And I think FaZe will really be doing that. Whereas I think it's a little harder to game plan against FaZe. I feel like they switch things up a good amount. Now I could also be talking nonsense. But
I
like
think you're chatting was.
am I chatting absolute wassy?
Yeah, I think Dallas are harder to prepare against. I think Dallas are the ones that are more likely to change stuff up and throw in curveballs, to be honest
There we
with you.
go.
I mean,
I agree
to be fair,
disagree.
that's based on what I'm seeing from FaZe on the home series events, but you got to assume it's champs. You got to assume a little more from teams. So, it's hard to call.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Dom then. So, by the looks of it, the two Doms that have been played, both been on Gunrunner, both gone to FaZe. Is that something we're expecting again? These teams love Gunrunner, by the way. It's every single mode for them.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. Look at the squads.
I mean, I think.
Go
So
ahead.
sorry. Nope, that's all you.
All right. I feel like from a coaching standpoint, if I'm Ray and I look at that stat, like, wow, we've played him twice on Gunrunner Dom, and we're 0-2. I feel like you have to try and switch up the map pick, honestly.
Where do they go then? Where do you think Dallas are strong? Where would Dallas try and move these vetoes?
Probably, I would say Dallas tries to play Hackney, but I'd
Yeah.
also assume that FaZe bans Hackney, so that would leave them with Petro, if it comes down to that. And honestly, on Petro, I would have no idea who's going to win that map.
Yeah, I think
I have FaZe on Petro.
Yeah, I think I would have FaZe on Petro, so I think
They're
that's
good
why
at
you're
that
probably
map.
going to end up seeing Gunrunner again. I can't see it being a different map. I think FaZe will veto Hackney, force Dallas to veto Petro, and then boom, Gunrunner. So I think that in general, I think on that map, probably actually I don't even know where I'd go, to be honest. Dom's a weird one. I really think Dom's honestly pretty hard to predict amongst two strong teams on the map. It's realistically down to like a couple of waves of kills most of the time.
I have
That's fair.
FaZe and Dom personally.
That's fair. I think all those points are fair, especially with, like I said, two stacked squads, right? It's so difficult to kind of split the difference.
Yeah, I think
I see a game. I see a game 5 coming.
Okay, all right.
I
Well,
can smell a game 5.
Huh?
Good old game 5. Let's talk about the best players then. Who are going to be the key factors in this matchup? Who are we looking to go against each other and kind of do the work in this series? Because stacked rosters, we talked about Dallas. Shotzi just got MVP. One person I did want to kind of highlight is Crim. There's been a lot of critique kind of focused at Crim this year in terms of consistency and in terms of the way he's been playing. Do you think that's a big factor now come champs time?
Honestly, with Crim, he just gets more heat because he's Crim. I don't think he's even played bad whatsoever through the course of this year. Maybe underperforming a tiny bit compared to his teammates, but I mean, he's playing with Kyler, Shotzi, and Illy. It's not like he's like getting carried by scrubs or something, but he's been playing fine. I feel like if he continues how he's been playing this event, they'll be in good shape. Also, Clayster, I think he might have like the highest KD right now.
Yep.
This is his best event by far this year, champs time. If he can carry that into this weekend, I feel like he'll be able to firepower the FaZe ARs.
I'm not gonna give Crim the pass Silly just gave him for sure. I think Crim's been dog shit for the better part of the year. I'm being dead. I mean, I think recently he's improved a lot. He quit Warzone, started putting a lot of time. I think once we saw him do that, he improved a lot. I'm not gonna give him the free pass. This is someone who's talked about as one of the best players ever. This is someone who called me a bitch when I teamed with him. I mean, this guy for his personality, he needs to back his beef. And I think for the better part of the year, he was getting carried, and now he's starting to turn it around. So, yeah, I do expect. I think he's been a lot better recently, and I think he has to keep it up. I also think he's a momentum player, where it's like if he starts off strong, he'll end strong. But if he starts off slow, I think the guy's just a head case. I think it can spiral quick.
It's a really interesting point, actually, and I think I spoke about this before with Crim. At some point, while we'll put aside the events of the year and the weird circumstance we find ourselves in with COVID and the online and stuff, obviously Crim is, as you spoke about, has that sort of legacy. Another win at the champs would be an incredible kind of like nail in his entire career, right? Like he has to be feeling some pressure for that, sitting there going, there is so much. If I win this, it's huge for him. And obviously with the critique he's faced during the year, and it's got to be. I don't think Crim feels pressure anymore in those regards, but in practice on the run up, I'm sure it's something he's thinking about.
Oh, he feels pressure.
Yeah, for me, I guess going back to the original question, I think that Clay, like Silly said, he's having one of his best events. I think in general, if you see that from him continuing into this series, you're going to have to, give Dallas the edge. I think that Clay has been performing fantastic, obviously, at champs, and I think in general over the years he's always had a solid champs, or at least stepped up towards the end, from what I remember. So I think that I'm expecting Clay to be the sort of X factor here.
That's fair. That's fair. What do we think about FaZe then? Who's doing the work on FaZe this time round? Who
Pick
do
your
Dallas need to
fucking
look out for?
poison.
Who do you think Dallas will be looking out for?
I mean,
No one in
any of
particular.
them. Any of them. Honestly, like you can get a superstar effect from pretty much anybody on that team. Any of them could turn up at any time. The obvious pick is Simp. BZ's like a Preston. If he's on and he's getting an entry every life, I mean, it's a scary team to play against in respawns.
That guy's on. He's the best player in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Simp. I think Simp's the most important, simply due to the S&Ds as well. I think that if they want to really compete, I think we touched on it before. I think that the sniper battles and S&D are going to be important. Looking at sort of you're looking at those series as a whole, I think Simp is just quite obviously the easy answer. I think that he's sort of the most impactful in the team.
Yeah, I think that's an easy answer. I mean, people are going to be looking at Simp regardless, right? He made such a ridiculous name for himself. He's had a pretty good year. It's now coming to champs again. After we saw the impact he had last year. Regardless of what happens, people would always be looking at him to do magic again and to put the work in and just be Simp, right? It's just, that's who he is now. He's made a run for his own back of being that good. So everyone's going to be always looking for him. So this is the $1 million question, or should I say the $1.5 million question. Who do we think moves forward from this one? Difficult question, but who do you think's moving forward?
I have FaZe.
Okay.
I've got Dallas taking it. I think that
I've got Dallas. So when you were talking about the matches, like their match records, that was also including LAN, right?
No, it's only the last 4 events, I believe.
Oh, last 4 events.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
It's a smaller kind of sample, but more relevant because it's the last 4 running up until this event.
I would have to see the maps before I decided on a pick. I'm pretty much in the middle right now. I have no idea. I feel like it can go either way. Obviously, COD's day to day, especially with it being online. It's day to day.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle.
I can say
I don't. Sorry, I think Priest has been playing out of his mind recently, and I think going back, I mean, I do think he's their X factor, and I think if he continues his style of play and how he's been playing, I don't see FaZe losing, personally.
Okay, so we've got 1 undecided, 1 FaZe, and 1 Dallas. That's not that helpful for me, guys. Just so we're clear. Silly, I might have to push you here on. Let's take for an example that the maps play out similar to how they've done before. Gunrunner Hardpoint, Azir Cave Hardpoint. Looks like Dom Gunrunner and Piccadilly and Gunrunner S&Ds. Obviously, the way around, I don't know exactly how it be. It looks like it'll be Gunrunner first Hardpoint by the look of it. So does that help you even a little bit if that's roughly what you think it's going to be?
Okay, let's say I'll pick FaZe, but it's going to be in 5.
FaZe in 5.
FaZe game 5.
Get outnumbered, Mark.
What'd you say then?
I said get outnumbered, Mark. Well, Bryce, who do you have?
Appreciate.
I feel like the worst thing is I feel like I'm going to agree with Marky.
Before Bryce comes in, let me explain my thought process, right?
Go for it,
so hard point, I would say it's 50-50, right? I'd say I could see both teams splitting hard points. 1-1. S&D, I'm giving the edge to Dallas, right? I'm giving the edge to Dallas and S&D.
Both searches to Dallas.
I'm giving the edge to Dallas and Search to Destroy.
Nah, you're tripping.
And then Dom. Okay, well, let's say it's a percentage, right? Maybe I'm not saying that Dallas win both searches, but I think they're the more likely team to win both searches, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And then domination, I'd say again, it's pretty 50-50. So I think that in general, I think that Dallas are gonna just edge it by, like I said.
I think it's going game 5. I got 3-2 FaZe. Wow, we're putting we're putting food on this. If I win, you're making me steak.
I'd make you dinner most nights anyway, mate.
Then if you win, I'll order you like Chipotle or something.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, fantastic. We've got a food bet. Funny enough, Marky, you actually convinced me out of picking Dallas while you advocating for that. You actually convinced me out of it.
I don't care.
Putting it in the terms that you put it in here, I feel like I can see FaZe taking hard points more consistently, and I don't think it's as clear cut on the S&Ds as you think it is.
Based on what? How are FaZe so clear cut to take the respawns? I think Dallas have looked
because I feel like this being the biggest tournament of the year, and the fact that they can have what I like to call in sometimes the chaos factor. Like when it gets less structured, when it gets more frantic, and there is that incredible. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying that these players turn to quivering wrecks. I'm saying that when you realize how much money is on this game and how important these games now are, right? And it gets fast and furious, and you get these insane tempos, which is what I'm expecting to see. I would pick FaZe as the better adaptable team in that environment. That's all I'm saying. And it's not by a massive kind of margin. I just think you've convinced me out of Dallas.
Listen, Clay's going to be in there spraying the comms, human UAV, right? And then you've got the rest of the boys coming through, slaying. That's what's going to happen.
Okay, well,
I'm chatting rubbish, but yeah.
Let's call this a FaZe win with a massive asterisk on the fact that it is close. And if any of us are wrong, I don't think we'll all be going, "Oh no, it's a terrible pick from me." Yeah. It's just one of these ones that you can split the difference, and we have to pick a team. FaZe,
I'm roasting. I'm roasting you all.
FaZe move forward. They're in the top 2. Means we get Chicago, Dallas, and we don't need to cover all these kind of teams and players again. But how do we think this matchup goes? Dallas versus Chicago. It is maybe a little bit of a story kind of rundown with the history of these two teams. Do we think we're seeing anything amazing here?
Picking Chicago for Twitter's sake.
Dallas.
I'm definitely picking Dallas in that series if it gets to it.
Can I pick Atlanta? Because
I want to pick
that series, right?
I want to pick Dallas, but I'm actually tempted because I actually think Chicago's been super strong in search, and I think like their gameplay sort of like what, Mark? Let's hear it. Come on, open your shithole.
No, continue. I'm just trolling at this point. Continue.
I meant mouth by that.
I love that you were gassing Marky up for his.
Listen. I think it's extremely easy to pick Dallas. I don't think it's far fetched to say that Chicago can win this series. It's a match it'd be the losers finals match. Like I think you can't just sit here and say Dallas will 100% win. I think Chicago has been strong in search. I can see search going 1-1. We can't act like Chicago's incapable of winning a hard point either. I mean, I can see that splitting 1-1. And I think it comes down to the Dom. And like looking at the chat, Chicago almost beat FaZe. Yeah, I mean, this is a game that's very like momentum based and can be day to day. And
yeah,
they haven't played each other in a while, by the way.
I don't think it will be an easy Dallas win. And I think Chicago will be doing everything possible not to lose to Krim. Whether that's sending people to his house to beat him up or something, I don't know.
I think in general, like to be honest, I think that you kind of got to really weigh up the matchup here. I think that going in the losers final, with Dallas dropping down from Atlanta, quote unquote, that's apparently what's going to happen. But you're going to have to obviously look at the sort of maybe the momentum factor, I guess. But I think if you're just talking a straight up match, I think you've got to favor Dallas. I think overall they're just stronger on all aspects, to be honest. So I think that yes, it definitely could be a very close match, and I do expect a close match, to be honest with you. I do expect it to be a tight one. That could go, to be honest, either way. But I think if you're judging teams straight up, then you've got to favor Dallas.
It's silly these two are kind of going at each other. Any kind of opinion you want to throw in?
I feel like this game's very like matchup based as well. And I feel like Dallas will match up a bit better, and that's why I give them like this slight competitive edge. Obviously anything can happen, but all these series, are going to be super, super close regardless. So there isn't a bad pick. Yeah. It just kind of depends on who shows up that day, really.
Yeah, like I said,
win for Chicago. They win online. They slayed the online demons. They lose. They never lost to them on LAN. It's a win-win.
Chicago can't lose regardless. I like that thought. It's a very interesting way of putting it, and I'm sure there's going to be many many Reddit threads. You say it's a joke, but I can already see the Reddit thread.
People, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. If we were on LAN, it wouldn't have happened. Formal would have been there.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I think this matchup for me comes down to a few factors. Obviously it's champs. Obviously it's the gas and the rivalries and stuff. And I don't know how much that really factors in because both these two teams really want to beat the other one to kind of put that rivalry, the one up on the rivalry, right? But they haven't played each other recently. So for me, I'm sitting here thinking, which has been the more consistent team in my mind? to keep moving forward since we switched to online. Who do I think has an edge? And without all the statistics in front of me, it would be difficult for me to pick that out. But my gut feeling is Dallas. My gut feeling is that Dallas have had a slightly more consistent run since the switch to the online stuff. And if you're going to pick it that way and try to get something, like I said, there's no in the last 4 events they didn't play each other. I think I would probably go an edge to Dallas. Now, bearing in mind here that we have picked Dallas to lose their last game, they would be coming off of a loss against FaZe. It's a super interesting one. And my gut says Dallas. My Twitter will say Chicago. But I don't know. I think coming down to it, you are right in the respects of, the amount of passion going into this game as well, because it is, in this scenario here, the winner of this one gets into the World Championship Finals, and that's when you can start seeing that ring. And that's when you go, well, Dallas, it's a chance of revenge. For Chicago, it's obviously, that's a ring on their finger, and they'll be like, this is a great opportunity for us. And I'm sure that the majority of fan bases that are fanatical about Chicago would, and probably anybody who watches wants to see the numbers go higher, an Chicago final would do bananas in terms of viewership. Whether or not that reflects the accurate real world situation of these two units, I am leaning towards Dallas.
Let me say, I'm very happy Chicago made the top 4 due to viewership's sake, because that Optic match was like down to the wire, and thank God, because I think the viewership would have been definitely not as good if we didn't see Chicago in there.
We would have just had Chicago host it. Just have them commentate the entire thing.
Have Scump on the desk.
Yeah. All right, let's try and figure this one out in terms of who we actually think is going to the grand final. Is it a rematch, Atlanta FaZe versus Dallas, or are Chicago FaZe what we are expecting to see? What is the grand final for the first CDL championship? Come on, who's brave? Okay, Marky's thrown
Dallas versus Atlanta again, mate.
FaZe
Yep,
versus
Atlanta again. Rematch. It's
FaZe
the best
versus
9 in the
Chicago.
final, right? So, what's that? 1 map advantage to Atlanta. Yeah, Dallas got that easy.
FaZe versus Chicago.
Marky, you don't happen to be in contract negotiations with Dallas or something for the off season, do you?
Yeah, I'm becoming Rambo Ray's boss.
Silly. Any way to kind of cut this down the line here? These two have been arguing the entire time.
Look, like I said, it's match to match. They're all going to be really, really close. I feel like the most exciting thing for me would probably be Dallas winning that rematch versus FaZe, and then winning the series down a map in the grand final.
Realistically, the most exciting possible thing we could see is Dallas winning in winners finals versus FaZe, Chicago beating FaZe, and then Chicago-Dallas finals. I'd sprint around my apartment for that one.
Yeah, that really would be.
That would be
brother.
fucking nuts.
That would be some great.
Now,
it's unlikely, but it is possible. All right, expect the unexpected. I think that was a.
Now you're going back. Now you're changing your predictions.
No. I was just saying it's possible. I'm not saying I think that, but yeah. I mean, I have Chicago over Dallas. I'm a Scump fanboy, and yeah, T2P baby.
You have to remind me, which one did you go for, Dallas or Chicago?
Dallas.
Okay, well, I think this time it'll be Methodz that's overruled, and I'll take that one, and we'll move Dallas back into the grand final. So the grand final of the CDL Championship, if it goes the way we think it will go, with the caveat being that it is incredibly close games to round out the season, the 1-0 advantage will go to FaZe. Obviously, this is a new format, and now we have to kind of think, we've already picked Atlanta FaZe to beat Dallas 1 time. Does it being in the final, does it being a best of, is it 7 or 9? I can never remember. 9. Best of 9. Best of 9 with a 1 map advantage. Does this change things with, obviously, the veto processes and how these two teams go at each other? What do you think? Like, what are your thoughts about the revenge matchup?
I think
it's best of 9 yet.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. The best of 9 is going to be the biggest factor, really. It kind of comes down to teams having the best map pool possible, really, I guess. The team with the stronger map pool is going to be an advantage in this series. But I think both teams do have solid map pools going back on that, obviously. Both of them being in that that top 2 position we're putting them at this point, you're going to assume that they're both very strong on multiple maps, which they've both shown. So it's certainly going to be a bloodbath when we get there. Like it's going to be interesting to see certain maps that you might not have seen in this series, like shaping up the entire year, sort of coming into play and seeing how that really does affect matchups. Because realistically, like Silly said earlier, matchups on this game play a massive part. Because like if you're a team that's going up against a team that has some of your stronger maps, for example, that they like to play, but maybe it's like they're sort of weaker, you're at greater advantage, obviously, and there's certain other ways that it can sort of play into your advantage too. But I think that this, like I said, map pool is going to be important, and I think that in general, if we want to go with anything, I think Dallas have got it for me.
Matt.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you go on before I bring up a point.
I mean, like you're gonna see 2 dominations, which is weird to me. Like that's something we haven't seen. You're gonna see maps that people would rather not play be played. So I mean, I think it actually just comes down to map pool. Like it genuinely comes down to who's stronger on the maps they get.
Well, that's something I was going to bring up here, because this obviously is a unique scenario. A lot of the times, teams can go, well, we don't really have to worry too much about this one. If it's not a Vito, we're bad on it. Yeah, we'll get some reps in during the year, but you play it more just for the practice and stuff as going forward. Do you think that this is something the coaches have had to battle with this week and go, look, if it comes down to, obviously, you don't want to go too far ahead and put yourself in the final, even if you're in a great position. But the coaches must have sat there and gone, right, realistically, we do actually have to battle plan for this scenario now. It's a scenario we've not had to face. We are now bringing in maps where we don't have statistics on them because we haven't played them competitively as much. We haven't played the other teams on them. It's one of these ones where, like, it's a little bit in the dark here, and I don't envy any coach that has to do it, to figure out with a lack of information what you should be playing in the most important game you're going to play all year. Is probably a horrible concept, right? Imagine getting to the final and you're like, oh, we've only played this map competitively, we've scrimmed it, but we've only played it actually in tournaments a few times and then we vetoed it. It's our worst map, but now we have to figure out whether or not it's their worst map or can we beat them on it. I mean, is that going to be an incredible factor moving forward in this? Like, how do you battle plan something you have not really had to battle plan all year?
I don't think it's gonna be like that big of a brainstorm behind it. I think they're gonna play it by ear and don't get me wrong, they're gonna game plan for it, but I don't think it's this integral thing where they're sitting there for like this whole week thinking, if we get the best tonight, we're gonna do this, this, and this. I think it just comes because I mean, to be honest, you don't know who's gonna have the 1-0 lead, who's gonna have which veto. Like you don't really know if you're gonna be Team A or Team B yet.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting, and I think it'll be a long conversation when the time comes. But I don't see teams sitting here game planning for it personally.
Yeah, the format is going to be so interesting, I think, because looking at obviously champs historically, the team that's won the winners finals is obviously in such a great position, only having to secure that one series, one map. It's not really, I feel like mentally for a player coming into a grand final, only being down one map in a best of 9, I think is like a much better position to be in, of course. So I think it's kind of, assuming that Dallas are the team that make it there, it's certainly going to be another tight one.
Yeah, so Silly, anything to add to this conversation about it? Like I said, it's a very unique scenario, best of 9. We've not really done it before.
There's not much to really add. It really just comes down to like the total map pool, like everyone was saying, because you're playing like, how many total maps is there? 13. You're playing 8 out of 13 of the total maps. The 2 DOMs in the series is obviously going to be weird, especially like I honestly don't even know how vetoes go, like how it goes back and forth in a best of 9. But it's obviously a weird scenario, but it really just comes down to how many strong maps either of these teams have, which they both generally have good map pools already, but it just depends on who has the slightly better one,
Well, okay, I suppose we better dial down on this point then. And it's not an easy question, this, and I accept this, but who do we think has the better map pool then? Because if that's going to be one of the factors that we have to talk about here, and we have spoken about these two teams very tight in terms of the way they split maps, who do we think has a better map pool? And it is a hard question because there isn't as much information as I'd probably like. But unfortunately, it is a question that must be answered because it is a factor. Anybody got any kind of inkling on who we think may have a slightly deeper map pool or a better method of getting the maps they need if it goes the distance?
I have to say FaZe. Just thinking off the top of my head, they I mean, I feel like so if they are better at 2 out of 3 of the DOMs, and there's 2 DOMs in that series, that's a big deal breaker. I
Yep.
feel like I could give them the competitive edge and say that they have 3 out of 5 better S&Ds. And then hard
Okay.
points, I feel like could be either way, but let's just say there's 1 extra DOM and 1 extra S&D that they're better at. And that would make, give them a slight competitive edge.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
say FaZe just to give you I don't know. I'm just gonna say FaZe for fun.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of
Okay.
looking into it, and like I'm actually just went back to an old chat with Ryan, our analyst, to check stats and whatnot, just to
Jesus Christ,
see
you're
if
dedicated.
I was correct. But yeah, I think overall you're right. I think Atlanta have a slight better map pool. Overall, I think that they're a bit stronger across the board. But I do feel like there is obviously going to still be a couple maps missing in the series. I think the vetoes are going to be massive for Dallas in this position. I think that I think they could have just avoid one strong map for Atlanta in each of the modes, and I think that you're in a decent position because, like I said, Dallas's map pool isn't bad. Obviously, it's good, it's solid, but I think Atlanta's is slightly better. So I think it's going to be close. I really would have to give this, like I said, the edge to Atlanta in terms of their map pool. But we're splitting hairs here, as Ryan would say.
we do have to. So I suppose the last question then, the very final question to ask, based on the fact that we've already spoken about these two teams at length, we've talked about their maps, their map pool, their players, and how they match up. The grand final of the CDL Championships. Who is our world champions for the CDL 2020 season? I'll start with you, Methodz. Where you going?
Chicago Huntsman, baby, they're taking it home. No, but if between FaZe and Dallas, I'm gonna give it to FaZe.
Okay.
Like I said, like I hate picking a match like this because I do think it's pretty much like 50-50. If it's not 50-50, it's like 51-49. Like there is no right or wrong answer in my opinion. My gut says FaZe. I'm gonna pick FaZe. But yeah, Chicago beats FaZe in the finals.
Okay, fair enough. Silly.
Man, I'm kind of conflicted across the board, to be honest. I don't know. I guess I have to give it to FaZe, talking about how their map pool is a little stronger across the board. I feel like they might match up, especially in like a series with more maps, better against any other team. So I just got to give it to them.
That's fair enough. Marky, any dissenting opinion here?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to go back to the original point, right? I think that Dallas are winning this original best of 5, and they're the ones that are in this finals position, which I feel like so big because I think that, like we said, Atlanta have a stronger map pool, and obviously that they'll have that one map advantage. So, like, theoretically speaking, in your world where this is the matchup, Atlanta are coming in as through the winners and Dallas are the losers, I would obviously predict Atlanta to win. Like I said, I think the situation might be a little different when it comes down to it. But yeah, Atlanta take it 4-2 or 4-3. Yeah, not 4-2. What am I saying? That's a best of 7. Like 5-3 or something like that.
Okay, long distance go. I would love to see it go all 8 maps, just to kind of see how it plays out. But all right, there we go. It looks like we have picked a winner. FaZe should be end up taking it. So I know we got a bit of a hard stop now. I promised you 90 minutes, but I'd like to thank you all so much for joining me on here. I don't think I could have broken it down anywhere near as well without these expert minds kind of throwing your opinions in. And truth being told, I think the level of breakdown has been fantastic. I know I pushed you on some very hard questions, but I do appreciate it. Any last thoughts or words from you, Silly?
Just thanks for having me. I'm really excited to watch Champs Weekend and see if my picks come to life. Excited to see how it goes down.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Methodz?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It was a good time arguing with Mark. Love doing that. Yeah, go Huntsman.
No problem. Awesome. Marky?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and obviously, I'd like to obviously respond to Zin and say it was a great time. Obviously, getting the chance to go head to head with him once again. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Bryce. Always a pleasure, mate. Always good chatting to you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you guys for coming on once again. I will have you back at some point in the near future to talk about more individual things related to you and your teams, because I think there's still so much to talk about. But this one was more about champs, and I appreciate you giving up your time. You know, I think it's very important to break down this with real educated opinions, and you guys brought that in droves. So thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who's watching. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify, thank you as well. It is going to be available. The VOD will be up soon. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into the Bricecast, and we will see you next time.